So you're pitching against other agencies, but do you truly know how your offer stacks up against theirs? If not, you're probably underselling your services and missing out on a critical opportunity to prove to prospects why you're the must hire agency. So in this video, I'm going to teach you how to create a competitor analysis grid. This is a critical tool that will show you where your agency shines, where others fall short, and how to use that insight to win more work. And so I'm Lindsay Christian. I run a six-figure agency dedicated exclusively to creating capabilities decks that convert. And this competitor analysis grid is something I use for a lot of my clients. Not only is it a great tool to really strengthen their capabilities deck, but it's just also something that helps them get a lot of clarity and feel more comfortable when they're pitching prospects who are also being pitched by competitors in their space. So let's get into it. So for the rows in this grid, what you want to do is list the services, features, and proof points that matter most to your prospects. So for example, this could be, marketing services like social media management, PPC advertising, just depending on what your agency does. This could be design services like logo design, website design, ad creative. This could be a unique process that you have. So a special client onboarding or delivery process, speed or turnaround time. So if you offer same day services or unlimited revisions, you could list that. Pricing models. So if you offer flat rate pricing or retainer pricing, that could be a point of differentiation. Client support. So for example, if you offer 24/7 support or dedicated account managers, that's something you could list. Case studies or proof of results. This is a really powerful one. So this is where you can say things like, on average, our clients on average 20% increase in impressions, or they doubled their close rate. Whatever metrics are important to your agency, that maybe other competitors haven't achieved. That's something you could list to really set yourself apart. And then finally, if you have expertise in specific industries. So this is great, if you focus on, tech startups or SaaS or something that really gives you a unique advantage over the competitors in the space that maybe don't have that special focus or aren't experienced in that niche. So really think critically about, the different rows and like what you think your prospects will care most about and what they really want to see. I did a video earlier on the channel that talks about knowing your who and just knowing who you're pitching. So this is a great opportunity to, again, really think about who you're pitching, what they care about, and then that's what you want to kind of slot into those rows. So for example, if you come back to our underwater agency, that specializes in underwater photography and videography. I use specialized underwater only focus, team of marine biologists and oceanographers, filmed in 1,500 plus dive locations globally. So just different proof points and different features and benefits that only they have, or that, maybe across the board, all of your competitors have, or some of them have, but you really want to focus on what you have so that you can build out the grid in a way that presents your agency in the most compelling way. So in the next step, and you can kind of see it here, you want to actually fill in check marks for what you offer, what your competitors offer, and then X's where those things are not offered. So in a perfect world, that first column for your agency is all check marks. You're basically saying we offer it all versus our competitors that only offer some of the services or some of the benefits or features or proof points. So, take some time to kind of investigate their websites, go on social, you might even have a competitor's capabilities deck, and go in and fill in this grid row by row so that you can begin to identify, what kind of sets you apart, and even gaps in your own services that you might need to fill. And your goal is to see, who offers what, and most importantly, what only you offer. So in this grid, for example, specialized underwater only focus, that's something that this agency only offers. And then also filmed in 1,500 plus dive locations globally, proprietary ocean cinematography method. So these are three buckets that only this agency offers that other agencies can't claim to offer. And so I'll talk a little bit about how to kind of leverage that and play that up in the deck later, but it's important to build out this grid so you can see, what makes you special, what makes you unique versus your competition. And so essentially you can kind of see here where the gaps are, where the open spaces are for you to maybe offer something competitors aren't offering. For example, maybe everybody's slow and you offer 48-hour turnarounds, or you can start to offer 48-hour turnarounds, or, they do generic onboarding and you can have a really scripted, streamlined onboarding process that gets clients up to speed quickly. So, sky's the limit here, but the key is to create this grid so you can understand where your strengths are, where your competitors' weaknesses are, and what the gaps are, and then use that insight to then inform how you're presenting your offer and your capabilities deck. Those little differentiators become your edge over the competition. And once you have those differentiators, you want to highlight them everywhere, obviously in your deck, on your website, and in conversation with prospects. And so the next step is to bring those differentiators strategically into your deck. So obviously you can use the us versus them table as a slide in your deck. I just showed you that. And this is a great visual tool, like I said, to just get prospects to quickly understand, why working with you is the best choice, how you stack up against everybody else, and kind of where your competitors fall short. But I also want to flag two other places where you can really use this information to strengthen your deck even more and to make your pitch even more compelling. So I would also use a lot of this information on your why us slide. And this is obviously a slide I talk about a lot on my channel. This is one of the most important slides in your deck because it essentially spells out your competitive advantage. But what you want to do is use that competitor grid to help inform what goes on the, what goes on the why us slide. So for example, if you look at a slide like this, so this is a why us slide I created for this underwater agency that does, videography and photography. And if you see, they have, underwater is our only focus, marine experts, visual masters, and every ocean we've navigated it all. So obviously the language has been dressed up a little bit, but those 3 points were pulled directly from the competitor analysis grid. So, underwater is our only focus. That was the first row where they say, deep water is our only focus. So that's a differentiator versus other agencies, that might just do general videography or, on land videography or videography that's not underwater focused. And, marine experts, visual masters, that's where I was saying, they're a team of marine biologists and oceanographers. So that was also a row in the grid. And again, this is something that might be important to a prospect where they really want that underwater expertise, not just video production skills or production skills, but they actually want that married with underwater expertise. And then finally, every ocean we've navigated it all. So that directly ties back to the row where they were saying, they've done these shoots at over 1,500 plus underwater locations. So again, just showing how expansive their expertise is in comparison to their competitors. So this red copy on the slide, I just wanted to highlight how you can directly translate what's in the competitor analysis grid to your why us slide. And if you use both of these in tandem, it will help strengthen your overall pitch because again, prospects will clearly be able to understand, not only how you stack up against everybody else, but then on this slide, they have this one snapshot of what really makes you special, just as a standalone slide that they can kind of digest. So another way to really leverage the competitor analysis grid is to kind of thread those differentiators through the different proof points in your deck. So for example, this is a case study I created for our fictitious agency. And you can do this with case studies, metrics, testimonials, any of the proof points that you're using. But so in this case, as you can see, it says 270% increase in donations. So that's like a focus point on the case study. It's in big text, it's called out. And that ties directly back to the row towards the bottom of this grid that says donation driving storytelling. So again, the prospects who are being pitched, they probably, if they're a nonprofit or if they rely on donations, want to know that the work that this agency has done or whoever they hire, the work that they've done has helped drive donations. And again, the donation driving storytelling wasn't unique specifically to this agency. It is something that they can claim. Other agencies can claim it as well. So it doesn't have to be a unique differentiator just to your agency. But again, this is just an example of how you can take what's in the grid and try to highlight it and call it out in the different metrics and proof points that you're using throughout your deck. And it's just going to help, not only strengthen those case studies, but just connect the storytelling from this grid, how you stack up against your competitors to the actual proof and results that you're showing in your case studies and in the metrics and testimonials that you're using in your deck. And so there you have it. That's how to create your competitor analysis grid. It's a super useful tool for your agency. I recommend revisiting it every quarter or so, just as your agency evolves, your competitors evolve. You want to make sure to keep it up to date. So you know what's going on out in the market, how to speak to prospects. And like I said, if a gap comes up or if there's a gap in the service offerings, you can fill that in, slot in that gap and offer something your competitors aren't to make your pitch even stronger. And if you just want help, coming up with your competitive advantages for your agency or creating a grid like this, my team and I, we'd love to talk to you. There's a link down in the description to book a call with us. And if you want help creating a really compelling why us slide, I know I mentioned it's one of the most important slides in your deck. Check out this video.